Take a look at your hand. There's something magical about it. Look, all the fingers are different lengths, aren't they? Everything's a different length. But then go like this. They're all the same length. Isn't that cool? That's going to be important in just a minute. Now I want to see how well you can count what you got there. If you're a piano player, you're going to get this wrong, because piano players call this 1, that 2, 3, 4, 5. But when you're playing a stringed instrument, with a neck especially, this is always a thumb. It's never 1, because it's always on the back of the instrument. That doesn't mean it can't play some notes sometimes, but it's not what you're going to use most of the time. So here's the thumb. That's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, what I want to show you is going to combine the numbers of your fingers, the placement of your thumb, and the magic of how your fingers come out the same length. Hold your guitar like you're getting ready to play it. Your thumb's going to go behind it, and can either rest on the neck or you can cradle it here. That's something that's personal preference. Here's why I like to use the thumb. Take your fingers and go like this. Now try to pull that apart. It's really not too hard to do, is it? Because there's not a lot of muscles in there. Now make a claw like this and squeeze really hard. Try to pull your fingers apart. It's hard. It might be possible to do, but it's really hard because that is very strong. Well, we're going to use that strength when we play the guitar. So if you let your, sometimes players will try to play like this with their thumb in front of the guitar, and they're not getting the benefit of the use of that strong muscle. So make sure your thumb's good and strong behind the guitar. Now your fingers are going to want to come down so the magic of the finger can work right on top of the string as much as possible. If you play with your fingers flat-fingered like this, the finger is going to touch more than one string, and the fingers are all different lengths, and they're going to be playing strings you didn't want to play. So get into the habit of having your thumb be on the back of the guitar and your fingers coming down over top of the strings, curled as much as you can, so that you are only touching the string you want to touch. Now I do understand that this means a challenge for some people who have beautifully manicured fingernails. I especially tell my teenage students the right hand is for looking good, the left hand is for the pocket. So if you have to cut these off a little bit, just keep that one in the pocket and show everybody your right hand with its nice manicure. If your manicure is getting in the way, you might have to make a choice. Do I want to play the guitar or do I want to play another instrument? For me, I play the guitar. That's why I don't have a great manicure. Okay, here's some fingering exercises that are going to make some use of what we just talked about with your hand. Your thumb's placed behind on the back of the neck. Your fingers are going to come down on top of the high E string. There's 4 fingers, we counted them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and these are going to be in the first 4 frets. Lay your fingers across the guitar so that they're reaching across the frets. This is one of those rules that will get broken later, but it's an important rule to use now. Your first finger will always play in the first fret. Your second finger will always play in the second fret. Your third finger will always play in the third fret. Your fourth finger will always play in the fourth fret. Now, what does this do? It does a couple of things, but the most important for me is I don't want to have to think too hard. If I have to think which finger and which fret at the same time, that's 2 things to process in the time that if I always use my first finger for my first fret, I can just think 1, and I know where my finger needs to go. 2, my finger knows where it needs to go. 3, it knows where it needs to go. 4, it knows where it needs to go. Now you might be saying, but I'm really good with my first 2 fingers because I've already played around on the guitar and I can play this cool lick. Let me show you. That's great. I'm not going to say that you can't play that lick and you can't play it well. But if you develop a good habit when you're learning to play, you will be able to transfer that later on to something that might have to be blinding speed, that if you have a bad habit now, you'll get so far and then you might crash and burn. We don't want that to happen. So don't forget the lick you can play and the way you can play it. But for the purposes of learning and developing your skills for playing guitar, let's have first finger play in the first fret, second finger play in the second, third play in the third, fourth play in the fourth. Try it with me. Open, which is no fingers, first finger, first fret, second finger, second fret, third finger, third fret, fourth finger, fourth fret. Now what goes up must come down, so let's do it backwards. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We're playing 5 notes and only using 4 frets because we're using the open note as well. Now let's do that again. Going down. Now you notice that we're still trying to have good tone, so this is a time to focus on that. Is my finger placement in a good place? Now just in case you're wondering how's he getting that tone, I'm using my thumb on my right hand to play. We'll get to the right hand in just a minute. Let's do this all the way up and down on all the strings. E string, the high E string, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, going down, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now, before we go on, one habit that can be a problem is to tuck your fingers that aren't being used hidden behind the guitar. And maybe you find you're already doing that. Now what has to happen in order for that second finger to get there? It has to run out, jump down, and the third finger has to run out and jump down, fourth finger. Now it's time to jump them, and that's just way too much work for me. If you were really into finger aerobics, that'd be kind of like finger Tae-bo, and if you want to do that, that's great. For me, it's too much work. I want to be able to play smoothly and quickly. Now let's go to the B string and do the same thing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's go real slow this time. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's go to the G string and do the same thing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The D string, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The A string, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And the low E string, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. If you notice something about how your hand had to shift, that's good. Because as you reach further across the guitar, your hand is going to have to reach further, and your fingers are going to have to reach further in order for them to come down in that curled position on top of the string as you play. You might notice a little more stretch here. You know something though? You're going to be very tempted to do this with your guitar and turn it so you can see what you're playing. And that's going to mean your hand has to reach even further. So I'm going to encourage you to keep your guitar in a good playing position where the neck is facing away from you. And I want you to do something. I want you to learn to trust your ears. You know, the truth is, we learned everything we've ever learned in the first 5 years of our life using our ears alone. We couldn't read. We could watch and observe, but we learned by ear. We learned by sounds. Then we got to first grade. They taught us how to read, and they spent the next 12 years telling us to sit down and be quiet because we weren't listening anymore. Well, now's the time to listen. Your hands and your ears have a connection. So if your hand is out of position, it's not clear, what do? I move my finger, and my ear will tell my finger which way to go. If you are so tied to watching what you're doing, find a mirror and play in the mirror so you can see what your fingers are doing. A bathroom also makes a real good echo chamber, so your tone will be very rich in there. And there's a big mirror usually. Now, being able to do that very smoothly, don't try to go fast to begin with. Make sure you have smoothness and good tone. And eventually what you're going to end up with is the exercise. This is the second step of the exercise. We're going to start low this time, and we're going to go across all the strings and come all the way back down. And my goal is to not be able to tell when I changed from one string to another string. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what goes up must come down, don't forget. Okay? Now when you practice, there are two things you should always do at the beginning of any practice session. There's 5 that I use in a practice session. The first is tune. The second is a fingering exercise like this, just to get the old fingers warmed up. The third one is to work on whatever your lesson is, whatever your assignment has been. The fourth thing is to go back and play something you've played before. Kind of review, make sure. It does 2 things. It helps you reinforce what you've learned before. It also reminds you, wow, there was a time I couldn't play that and now I can. And the last one is to memorize something. Is there something I can memorize? I'll bet that you can memorize this exercise. And you didn't even think you could play guitar.